So everyone is talking about AI, but how founders really use it. So like most founders, I started to play with AI mostly in communications, sending emails, fixing my grammar as a non-native English speaker and all of that. And that was the basic, and we all see the amazing results that AI can produce. But then over time, I started to talk with more and more founders. So in MicroConf, I had the chance to chat with many founders and asking like, how do you guys use AI? And I saw some crazy usages and automations, especially with engineers putting 3-4 different tools. One is decoder, another is code reviewer, crazy stuff. So I was not there, I no longer code, but it really inspired me into, wow, there are many more ways of how AI can be used. And some really great tips that I got from Marcel, the founder of Bold Video, was about framing. You can tell AI how to communicate. For example, we went through an OKRs process in the end of last year, basically defining our strategy, the objectives, the key results, everything related to our SaaS expansion and what we want to achieve. And in the OKRs process, I realized that the key results that initially were produced are a little long, not easy to remember. What I've done is basically asked to frame it as if it was Steve Jobs communicating. Why? Because Steve Jobs is exceptionally known for his like simple communications, being able to attach to the emotional part of humans. It was like so much better. For example, we had this objective, rapidly turn SaaS sign-up into loyal sellers with stellar product and developer experience. So it's great, right? But it's pretty lengthy. And after we went through the Steve Jobs engine, the result was turn SaaS signups into thriving sellers fast. So it's significantly easier to understand, it's shorter, and it's more memorable and can be relatable. So that was one example. So depends on the use case and what you're trying to produce. You can tell AI, wear this hat right now, be this persona, communicate in this way. So that was a big thing that really helped me to understand that the power that you can get with AI. Another important thing was some newsletter that I subscribe. So basically what they do is every week they send you an article where they create a set of prompts that has a specific task. And I remember that specific email, I said, okay, let's give it a try, see what the prompts will produce. And the goal was to create like a content strategy, something like that. And the results that it gave me, it was really amazing. And I shared it with the entire team. And the reason I think the results were amazing, in addition to the prompts and all of that, is because we went through the OKRs process along with GPT. So all the content, the context was there, combining it with like quality prompts, produced really mind-blowing results. And we took a lot of ideas from that content strategy, which was amazing. And I actually subscribed to that newsletter, started to pay for that to get all the full prompts. And I have this weekly hour on Sundays where I basically spend a whole hour trying different prompts and getting up to date of what's happening in AI. I can't really get everything. There are so many things all the time, but at least it helps me to keep my finger on the pulse. And what I learned from these prompts, in addition to the persona, it's also about setting up the framing in terms of the experience of what you want to produce. For example, if I want to draft an engaging LinkedIn post, I can start with, you are a Silicon Valley based top tier social agency or something like that with specialties in LinkedIn engagement. And your task is whatever, right? So you set up the framing, which basically prompts the AI on what is the level of experience and background you want it to have when it produces the responses. And that combo of putting the persona, right, of how do you want to communicate, the communication style of the output, along with the experience, combining that, it's like producing really powerful results. So this is something that I've done, and now this is how I use AI. The way for me to stay up to date and having my finger on the pulse is trying, experimenting with different prompts that people, this is what they do, this is their expertise, they're selling those prompts. And also allocating an hour per week when I can play with different things, maybe try a new AI tool, a new engine, maybe watch a little like YouTube video to see what's happening. So that's my way to stay on the loop, right? So when we worked on the strategy, I had some ideas, I wanted to get some feedback. And once again, AI has the right context, it can really produce quality results, especially if you're a sole founder, which is the case for me. So when you want to share some sensitive information and things that are not ready to be shared with the team, AI is a really great thinking buddy. Another cool thing that I wanted to do, which was a combo of experimentation and also testing our platform, is how Freemius is AI ready for integrations. So if you have a tool that requires some integration, and you know that integration on developer level, I would say, today, because of the trend of AI, we're getting like many more people who are not developers getting into no code and playing with AI, especially if they're product people or marketing. They can interact with AI and produce cool results. And we're seeing that on Freemius. We have makers who started SaaS that are not coders that have been able to do that, which is pretty impressive. I was hearing about other tools all the time and I got to test it out. I'm also an engineer in my background. I really want to see the magic. So that was one thing, but I also wanted to see how hard will it be to actually integrate Freemius just by prompting AI. So I paid for Cursor and took a SaaS starter kit and basically tried to prompt with AI to integrate Freemius. It will take me step by step, Cursor plus our documentation and what I can do as a developer, trying intentionally limit my development skills as much as possible. And I learned a bunch of things out of it. First of all, that it was 6 months ago, something like that, that we have a lot of additional work to do in order for it to be ready for AI integrations, because the docs were not completely there and because the framework of the starter kit was Node.js and Next.js, and we didn't have those SDKs and documentation. There was some hallucination. It was like maybe 70%, but 70% is not enough, because if you're not a coder, not a developer, you can't really close that gap of the 30%. So that was a lesson to me first, that we still have lots of room to grow in that SDKs part. And I'm really happy to say that last week we did an official webinar where we launch our Next.js SDK. So we are doing this. And second, I played with Cursor to see how's the experience working, learn many things for good and bad, also push the team to play with that. But it was great experimentation from all over the place, getting my hands a little dirty. And the last one, which is last but not least, is shall we integrate AI capabilities into Freemius? So obviously there is this race to AI and everyone either starting AI first tools or pushing AI capabilities for multiple reasons just to stay relevant. And on one hand, yes, we want to do that. On the other hand, I also, because we've been 10 years in business, we don't want to rush adding capabilities without clear demand, without having strong feeling that this will move the needle, will have the ROI and all of that. So we do have a bunch of things that we want to do. 80% of them are nice to have and mostly about how to access the data. I think AI is a great mediator, right, between limitations of UI and access to data. So we have a lot of data for makers about their payments, all their payment information, their customers and all of that. There are a lot of insights there, but we're limited. There's a limit of what we can offer them in the stats, in the analytics. They can't really run SQL queries on the database, but potentially we can put this chat that will allow them to ask any question about the data. It's like nice to have, because most don't really need those advanced things. We also have some things that we feel can really move the needle, both for our makers and also for us, and mostly around pricing. Like I said, we have a lot of data about payments. There's a lot of data about different products and categories out there in the world. Right now, when makers are unsure about their prices or they want to tweak it, optimize, usually they contact us and we're having a call, discussing it. And over the years, we developed intuition along with the data. We can say, hey, it's recommended to decrease this price. Based on what I've seen, I think it could do a really great job. Our idea is that we'll have it as part of the tool, different pricing recommendation engine based on what is your product type, what is the category, maybe reading some information from your website automatically. And that can be used internally for our existing customer base, but it can also be used as this growth hack for lead generation, right? We can create a standalone mini SaaS where you can just maybe even share just the URL of your website, maybe type a bit of information, and then we can give you some optimizations of what you can do with the pricing, and this way capture leads and potentially start a certain flow into trying to bring them to Freemius eventually. As a founder, you're probably super busy and there are like so many things happening in AI, which is, it's impossible to follow everything, but this framework works for me. So again, I'm trying to stay up to date. For me, it's that newsletter and talking with other founders in conferences, getting ideas from them, the actual experimentation and work, trying to have that on a weekly basis, play with some prompts. And when I see something that works, I go adopt it and try to have that as part of my actual work. I also started to build a prompts library for the team. The third one is experimentation, that it's more on the technical level and maybe seeing how your product is AI ready, especially if it does have some technical components that require integration. And the last is actually evaluating and being real with yourself. Like, can and should you bring AI capabilities into your product? Focusing on the things that really move the needle versus nice to have, and at least starting to think how you put that in your roadmap. So yeah, this is what works for me. If you want to get a deeper dive into this topic, take a look in the link in the comment. I've written a whole article about that.